Matt, finally here with Dungeons and Dragons 2024. I know a lot of you already have copies of it, or some of you asking, is it worth getting? Yes, it's worth getting. I can't get it here in Australia yet because it doesn't come out until October 10th, October 11th in Australia, if the supplies arrive on time. But I do have a digital copy. So we're going to explore some of the elements of the new Dungeons and Dragons and how awesome it is, because I think it's going to do a lot of good for the game. So join me as we explore Dungeons and Dragons 2024. So let's start with the basics of how we begin by creating our character in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, with the new Dungeons and Dragons, it's slightly different. We used to start by choosing our race and our class and going from there. With the new Dungeons and Dragons, we don't choose our, it's no longer race, it's now species. We don't choose our species until towards the end of character creation. We start by choosing our class, because our class defines all of the different abilities we have. So step one in creating a character is now to choose your class. Step two is determining the origin of your character, getting into it in depth, and we'll get to that in a minute. Step three is the ability scores, and determining what ability scores your character has. Step four, your alignment. What kind of alignment you have, and we'll get into that in detail again in just a minute. And finally, you fill in the details, and we get into all of the nitty-gritty. So let's just get into it and see how to go about creating a character in the new Dungeons and Dragons. Choosing your class is the first thing you're going to do. Now I'm going to do another video on each class and the details of each class and how awesome the new features are of each class. But I will give you a basic overview of what's best in terms of what kind of character you want and what class you want to choose. If you like battles, you want to choose a barbarian. The barbarian is the one who really gets into the fights. If you're that kind of character who just loves to get into fights, the barbarian is the one for you. Naturally, if you're a performer and you love the singing, the dancing, the storytelling, you're going to be a bard, obviously. So the bard is the one who does all of the entertaining and the singing and the charisma and all of those sorts of things. If you're all about the gods and wisdom, you want to be a cleric. So if you're into the religious side of the world of Dungeons and Dragons, a cleric is the choice for you. Getting in touch with nature, if you want to get in touch with nature, you're going to be a druid, because the druid is the one who can get in touch with all those speaking to animals and plants and all of those sorts of things when exploring through the forests and the jungles of the world of Dungeons and Dragons. If you love your weapons and creating weapons and using weapons really well, you want to be a fighter. The fighter is the one who has all the fancy weapons. If you're a wise one who doesn't like weapons, but if it has to get into a fight, will do it unarmed, it's probably best to be a wise monk. If you're the protector who loves to defend and protect all of those around you, if you're really into the defensive side of things, you'll want to be a paladin. If you're all about survival and the different things you can use to help with survival as you're going through your trek, finding all of the different herbs and things and the right kind of animals to be friends with and all that, you're going to be a ranger. If you want to sneak around and be all stealthy and spy-like, you're going to be a rogue. If you're all about power and charisma, you're going to be a sorcerer. If you're into occult lore and you want to get into the occult side of things in the world, you're going to be a warlock. And if you love to read and get into spell books and casting spells through books from libraries and things, you're going to be a wizard. So that's a basic overview of the different classes. I'll go into detail in each class in different videos, but that's the start. If you're thinking about what kind of character you want to be, that's your start. You begin with your class. It depends on how you want to play the game. Do you want to fight? Do you want weapons? Do you want to use spells? Are you all about power? Are you all about magic or nature? Choose well. If you want balance in your party, you want a cleric, a fighter, a rogue, and a wizard. That's the best traditional balance that people have within a party, and then build from there and have others within that. Once you've decided on your class and you've got all the details of your class that you understand, the next thing you want to do is get your XP. Now, if you're starting at level 1, you have 0 XP. If your class has armor training, you'll also note on your character sheet at this point in time the armor training that you have. Now, you'll know that by looking into the details of the class from the player's handbook. But don't worry too much right now. As long as you've chosen your class and you've got your XP, you can move on from there, and you can go into more depth later on to fill out all the details on your character. So basically right now, you've got the chosen class on your character sheet, and you've got your XP and your level written down on the character sheet. Now is when you choose your origin. Once you've got those details of class and XP and level, you choose your origin. This is where you get into species and all those kinds of things. Now, your background will influence your ability scores, so choose carefully what kind of background you want to have for your character. If you want strength as one of the big things, then you're probably going to go with artisan, entertainer, farmer, guard, noble, sailor, or soldier. If you're into dexterity, you'd probably choose artisan, charlatan, criminal, entertainer, guide, sailor, scribe, soldier, or wayfarer. Constitution, if you really want to have a strong constitution score, charlatan, criminal, farmer, guide, hermit, merchant, sage, or soldier. If you want intelligence and you want really strong background in intelligence, you'll choose acolyte, artisan, criminal, guard, merchant, noble, sage, or scribe. If you're wanting wisdom, usually acolyte, farmer, guide, hermit, sage, sailor, scribe, or wayfarer. We'll get into all those later. And if you're looking for charisma, obviously you'll want acolyte, charlatan, entertainer, hermit, merchant, noble, or wayfarer. Essentially, based on what kind of abilities you want a lot of strength in, those are the kinds of backgrounds that you would choose to get the best out of that kind of background. Backgrounds also give you special feats. So at this point in time, and we'll get into those a bit later, you'll look at the feats that gives you, F-E-A-T, not feet as in feats that you walk with, feats as in F-E-A-T-S. And those feats that you get, you put those on your character sheet too. So you go, okay, I'm going to be an acolyte, and that gives me these feats, and you write the feats down in that section of the character sheet. You also have proficiencies from your class, so that's when also you would look into your proficiencies. What am I really good at? And you put those down on your character sheet as well. Usually you mark your proficiencies and your special skills with a little circle next to them on your character sheet. Now, the great thing is with your background, it gives you starting equipment, but also gives you some gold or money, and you can spend that immediately to get some more equipment while you're building your character. Also, you can grab one trinket at no cost from the trinkets table in the player's handbook. Chapter 6 goes into all of the equipment. I'll do a full video on that later on. This is when you choose your species. So we're later into the creation. Now we choose our species. Now you've got, your dragonborns, your dwarves, your elves, your gnomes, your Goliath, your halfling, your human, your orc, and your tiefling. You choose from one of those. Once you've chosen your species, you put that onto your character sheet as well. Your size and your speed is determined by your species. So that also gets recorded that time. When you look up your species in the book, you find your species size and your species speed. You put those down on your character sheet as well. Now is when you fill in the background story of your character. And this is a lot of fun when you're creating your character. Who raised you? Who was your dearest childhood friend? Did you have a pet when you were growing up? Have you fallen in love before? Have you got unrequited love? Did you join some kind of an organization? What kind of a god did your family, or what kind of god do you worship? What elements of your past inspire you? And you write that down in your background information. This is where you create your whole backstory. And we all know when we're creating that, we create huge backstories with a whole lot of drama. As a dungeon master, I always use that background within the story. So it's an important thing to fill in to get the full character. Who were my loves? Who raised me? What did I learn? Most adventurers will choose, we've got 3 languages, common plus 2 others that you choose from as your character now, and you write those languages down. There is a list of standard languages and rare languages. Choose carefully, think about the world you're in, what kind of people you're going to encounter, and think about what would you want for the languages that you have. Obviously, Dwarvish or Elven, or do you want Celestial as one of your languages? Goblin, Gnomish, Giant, Halfling? What kind of languages? Who are you going to encounter, and what kind of languages? Now remember, if you're working with a team and creating characters, think about the different languages that each member could use and how they could use them well. Does your background help you with understanding what kind of languages you may have been taught while you were growing up. Now is when you choose your ability scores. Now, you could use the standard array, which means that basically you go 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8, and you choose from your ability scores and you choose which is your strongest. So if you're a fighter, you might put 15 as your strongest for strength, and you might put, 8 for charisma because you don't want to be that charismatic. You want to get in there and fight. But you choose. Or you roll 4d6s and record the total to the highest 3 dice and do this 5 more times to get your 6 numbers, the usual thing. And then you disperse those numbers amongst your ability scores to decide which ones are your strongest and which ones are your weakest. You could go with the standard class, right? Now, there's a table in the book that explains this, but basically, you got things like, for example, a barbarian would have strength of 15, dexterity of 13, constitution of 14, intelligence of 10, wisdom of 12, and charisma of 8. So there is a standard array that you can choose from in the book if you are unsure on what you think you need. There's a guide there of the standard array by class for you. Once you've put it out there, maybe you want to adjust them. Maybe you think, oh no, actually, I want to concentrate on this. Then you work through it and you can change the ability scores as long as you keep the numbers. You don't invent a new number. You stick to the set numbers you're given. You just switch them around to fit your character. Then you've got to choose your ability modifiers, and there is a table for that to help you understand that. So, for example, if your score is 3, then you've got a -4 modifier. If your score is 20, you've got a +5 modifier on that one. So when you take a look at all of that, you put your modifiers down and they help you, of course, the modifier with dice rolling, etc. Once you've got your modifiers, you now go, well, what will my character look like given those modifiers? If I have strength, I might create a big muscly character. If I'm a weaker character, might be a little smaller. You take a look at all of the features you've got on your character sheet, and then you write a description for it. Once you have a description of your character and you have a good understanding of what it looks like, what they look like, what they do, their background, and everything like that, you've got to come up with your alignment. And alignment is important because that is what shows what kind of things you'll do when it comes to moral dilemmas. You stick to your alignment with the decisions you make. You don't make your decisions as you, the player. You make your decisions as you, the character, and your alignment. Now, your alignment might change over time depending on what happens with your character. You discuss with your DM whether your alignment changes or not, and how your alignment will change. Now, let's go through the alignments and see what kind of alignment you might want as a character. Lawful good characters will do what is determined as good by society and will follow the law to the letter of the law. Neutral good will do the best they can to try and follow the rules, but won't necessarily follow all of the rules for the greater good. They'll make decisions that may go against that because it's the greater good that needs to be served. Chaotic good characters will do whatever their conscience tells them to do and completely disregard what other people think. They'll do what their conscience says is the right thing to do. Lawful neutral follows the law because it's the law and that's what they've been taught. And they don't really think with a conscience. That's how it is. Neutral characters in general don't want to get involved in moral decisions whatsoever. They don't want to get involved in any of that kind of stuff. Nope, don't want to talk about it. Don't want to you make the decision. I'll go with it. I'll do but I'm neutral. Don't ask me. Chaotic neutral will just follow their whims and they won't listen to other people. They'll do what they want to do, and that's just it. That's what they'll do. They're chaotic neutral. Lawful evil will methodically take what they want, but will live by a set of rules and regulations and traditions that they have learnt, and they won't break those rules. Neutral evil don't care what the consequences are of what they do. They just do what they do, and they will not think about anybody else in the process as long as they get what they want. Chaotic evil are spurred on by bloodlust and violence, and they will do anything to get what they want, and they will use violence to get it. Now, each alignment has personality traits that go with it, so you have to also think about the personality traits your character will have. Chaotic creatures will be boastful, impulsive, rebellious, and self absorbed. Good characters will be compassionate and helpful and honest and kind. And evil characters will be dishonest and vengeful and cruel and greedy. Lawful characters will be cooperative, loyal, judgmental, methodical. Neutral characters are usually selfish and disinterested, laconic, and pragmatic in nature. Once you've done all that, make sure you have all your class features written down. So you'd look into your class, look at all the features, and make sure you've written down all the specialities. Make sure you've got your saving throws, your skills, your passive perception, um, your hit points, and all of those things down. Now, with your hit points, you take a look at what your class is, and then you calculate it through that. So, for example, a barbarian is 12 plus the constitution modifier, whatever your constitution modifier is. And you add those two together, you've got your hit points. Fighters, paladins, and rangers, it's 10 plus your constitution modifier. Bards, clerics, druids, monks, rogues, and warlocks, it's 8 plus your constitution modifier. And sorcerers and wizards, it's 6 plus your constitution modifier to figure out your hit points. And that's basically your health points, your points that you have until you get down to 0 and become either unconscious or, well, most of the time with a good DM, unconscious. Now for your armor class, and that's the thing that protects you when someone rolls to attack you, for your armor class, it's 10 plus your dexterity modifier, whatever the dexterity modifier is for your class. Once you've done all of those details of figuring out all of the elements within that, and your DM can help you if you get stuck with any of those, you come up with a name for your character. But I do this towards the end because then you know the personality of your character, the background of your character, what your character looks like. You've got a better understanding of your character. Now, there are name generators out there, but usually by this stage, you should have a general idea of, I think I know the name of my character. If not, go to a name generator and they'll get those for you. The final thing that you do with your character sheet before you move into actually starting to play the game is you think about the finer details that you just want to fix up. So, for example, the gender of your creature. What personal people do you care about the most? What's your deepest fear? What are you seeking? What is your main goal? Is it wealth? Is it glory? Is it revenge? Is it justice, mercy, power, or something else? What's driving your character? Once you've got all that down, you've got your character in your mind, you're ready to go. And you learn along the way. But that's the essential summary of character creation in the new Dungeons and Dragons. I will go into more detail with each class and species in a different video, but there's the beginning stages of it. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create some characters for my players. And my players obviously are Gatsby and the rest of the puppets. But I'll create characters for them, and then we will go through and start playing a campaign. I hope this helps in some way. I'm looking forward to having a physical copy of the book very soon. In the meantime, thanks for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.